Hello, church. Welcome to our virtual worship service for March 29th, 2020. It's been another amazing week in the lives of this coronavirus and learning how to move through our days in completely new ways for many of us. I hope that once again this video finds you well and managing in ways that are life-giving for you and your family. Today I want to start with a time of prayer. We've been getting some beautiful prayer requests. We put out an appeal for some on Wednesday and have received some by email. Keep sending those in either to Barb or to me, because I'm happy to incorporate them into these services as we move forward. I'm going to start with those requests. The first one is from Carol Williams, and it's a prayer that she's offering for all the healthcare workers and all the grocery store workers. Just anyone who's sort of putting their lives out there right now, truck drivers, delivery people who are providing for the different goods and services that we all require to help things go well. So she lifts them up in prayer. We also want to remember around the world we have UCC partners and mission co-workers who are serving in their respective communities but also facing the impact of this worldwide virus. So I lift up Caitlin Thompson, who's serving in the Dominican Republic. She's teaching English to girls aged 13 to 18, also working as a community social worker. Tom Little, who is serving in East Timor as a pastor and an EMT. Nishan Bakalian, who is serving in Lebanon as a preacher and mentor to young leaders. He's also a music and language teacher and a trusted community member there for over 3 decades. And lastly, Kahala Cannon, who is serving in Eswatini, who is working with the Justice, Peace, and Reconciliation team at the Council of Swaziland Churches. She focuses on women's issues, HIV, and other areas of ministry to support her community. A prayer for Amy Elmgren, who is the daughter of Vicki and Ed Elmgren. She lives in Brooklyn and has been dealing with just for 10 days feeling sick and feverish and a cough, many of which are symptoms of what we know to be COVID-19, but she has not been tested, so she's just been managing it. Vicki does report that she's starting to feel better, but I know it's been kind of a roller coaster ride, so we hold Amy and the Elmgren family in our prayers. And then I have a personal one I want to lift up. My friend Kevin, who was here when I was for my installation, he did the sermon for my installation. He was diagnosed just 2 days ago with COVID-19 and has been very sick now for almost 2 weeks. So I'm just lifting up a prayer of love and concern and healing for him and his family, and of course for all those in our lives that, as the days go forward, we're starting to become aware of friends and family who are so deeply and personally impacted by this virus. So we lift up all of those who are facing that particular struggle and in their need right now. I want to offer a space and a moment to hold the various prayers that you may have that you didn't yet share with me. And if there's something you want to lift up even while you're watching this, let's take a moment to allow that to happen, and then I'll close this with a pastoral prayer. God, in the silence, we come to terms with some of those places and those voices that are causing us to struggle right now. Because a lot of us, for most of our lives, maybe for all of our lives, we've been so good at planning and laying out plans and having ideas of how our days and our weeks and our lives should go. And now, all of a sudden, all those plans that we've laid out have been just sort of pushed aside, somewhat torn apart. So in the midst of that kind of turmoil, Some of us respond by wanting to put it all together back again, quickly and get back into a routine. And while that is absolutely critical and important, we still recognize that every day it feels like we're cobbling something else together and holding it together. And so in the midst of all of these things that continue to come our way and to pull at us and to ask us to be something different all the time, it seems, help us not to hold too tightly then to the plans that we make. Let us recognize that as things continue to change, even fall apart, help us to rely less on those plans and more on you and your guiding, loving, healing presence and your strength. You are the God of the sick and the worried, of the lost and the lonely, of those who are putting themselves out there, putting themselves at risk for others. You hold all of it, you hold all of us in a container that is unending, so much bigger than what we see and know today. So, God, continue to be with us in ways that are profound and unexpected with each moment, with each day that passes. In and with Christ, we pray. Amen. Our passage today is from the Gospel of John. And it's a pretty simple passage in a lot of ways. And yet, as is often the case, the simplest passages, the ones with the concepts that we so deeply or readily understand, are the ones that are kind of the hardest to sink from here down to here. So what's one today comes from John chapter 15, verses 12 to 17. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. I do not call you servants any longer, because the servant does not know what the master is doing. But I have called you friends, because I have made known to you everything that I have heard from my Father. You did not choose me, but I chose you. And I appointed you to go and bear fruit that will last, so that the Father will give you whatever you ask him in my name. I am giving you these commands so that you may love one another. So last week, across my Facebook feed, I saw a post with these words. It said, "Love isn't canceled. Kindness isn't quarantined." And it was written by an experimental musical artist named Otep Shamaya. She's out of Los Angeles. And the funny thing is, as I was poking around looking, I kept seeing that phrase come up in various places, this idea, love isn't canceled. Even Hunter Pence, the San Francisco Giants ball player, posted those exact words. And it got me thinking that when everything else feels like it's canceled, when everything else is stopping, how important it is to remember that love is not and never will be canceled. And that our job as people of faith and just people in community is to love. It's to continue to love. Those words I just read, love one another, that from Jesus, those are our mission statement, and that doesn't change. Even when everything feels so up in the air and questionable and what's happening, none of that stops. Because it's who we are. It's who we're called to be. And it reminds me, what a friend said is a powerful, illustration too, something to remember. And that is, in Mandarin, the word for crisis consists of two characters, one meaning danger and the other meaning opportunity. And so our opportunity right now as people of faith, as a church, is to figure out how, not if, but how we are to love in the midst of all the danger. And so over the last few weeks, we've been figuring it out a lot, and we've been shifting on the fly. I mean, if you've been watching these videos over the last few weeks or the Wednesday updates, you're seeing it happen. And Becca Kreiner, who's our Director of Children, Youth, and Family Ministry, she's been doing all sorts of things, creating new content, creating Facebook pages, different creative ways to keep people connected in difficult times. A few weeks ago, as we were kind of shutting down all the programs, the public programs in the church, we got word from the Gathering Inn, one of our core ministries, and they said, please do everything you can to continue participating in this program, because these people, they still need to eat, they still need a place to stay. And so 2 Fridays ago, it was our regular turn in the rotation, our monthly turn in the rotation, and this time it was the Gold Country Rotary Club who was responsible for the meal. And at first they were worried, how are we going to do this? And so after some creative conversation and teamwork and determination, we came up with this plan of creating a really nice, healthy picnic-style meal where they could self-serve and still be able to stay in Overmiller Hall. And it was safe for everyone involved. And I also want to say that Awful Annie's, the local restaurant, provided all the sandwiches for free because they had all this extra stock and they didn't have anything to do with it because all the restaurants had just been closed down. And so all of this is an example of how we continue being community, how we continue being church in the midst of a quarantined world. This past week I got word from Peter and Lucy Clark, who are members of this church on the leadership team of the Auburn Interfaith Food Closet. And they were sort of giving an update on how things are going there. And somehow, through faithful prayer and will, they are making it work with a skeleton crew, about half the normal number of volunteers, because they've had people just kind of back out for health concern reasons. But with about half the people, they're serving ever-increasing needs of folks in our community who are coming across food insecurity. They're making it work. And I just want to put in a plug that if you have the wherewithal or the desire to volunteer to get involved with helping that particular organization, please contact Peter or Lucy Clark directly or the church office and we can get you in touch with them. But once again, the mission to serve, it doesn't change. It's how we do it that we're talking about here. Something else a lot of us, I think, have experienced over these days is that this gift of time, this abundance of time that we've had, and the ways that this pause around the globe has helped so many of our relationships, so many different ways. It's helped draw us closer together, even though we've had to maintain a level of physical distance. I got a text a few days ago from a woman connected to our community who said she was motivated, she was inspired to reach out to a friend with whom she hadn't spoken in years because of some old wound, and she built bridges to kind of get over some of those places of divide. My wife told me this past week that I've spent more time with my high school buddies, Greg, John, and Rob, than I have in years. And she's right. Because now we get together once a week on Zoom to share a beer. Kids are doing art projects, kind of committing, doing more every day and sending them to grandparents, or maybe they're even sending them to senior folks that they don't know at various senior care facilities. Spouses are getting more time to sort of just talk and be with their spouse. And now I want to say this too, because I'm hearing this too, that there's the flip side. Sometimes spending time together is wonderful, but I've also heard that, some couples have said, I'm finally seeing what it's going to be like to be together when we're retired. Yeah. You sort of learn a lot about each other when you're cooped up, right? And you learn a lot about yourself too. We all learn a lot about ourselves. I have a seminary friend who posted this past week. He said, let me say this very clearly. I am not a teacher. I did not sign up to be a teacher. Either they go to school or they're on vacation. But either way, no more homeschooling. And I know there's a lot of parents that can relate to that. And last thing I want to say is I love this other meme that came across my Facebook feed that goes, and just like that, no one ever again asked a stay-at-home mom what it is that she does all day. These times have asked us to roll with the punches, to change so often, every day, maybe more than once a day. But through it all, our mission hasn't changed. Love is not canceled. Kindness is not quarantined. And look, I know that there are many folks, many of you, that are barely hanging on right now. You know, we go through and we have our moments where we feel okay, but a lot of us put on a good face, and then underneath it all, we're stressed out. Worried about our loved ones, maybe our older parents or folks that we don't get to see because they're far away. We're worried about ourselves. We're worried about what's going to happen with our job, with the economy, with our world. This stuff's real. And we hear all the time about, people doing all this panic buying, right? I was at Raley's, a couple days ago, getting milk, and I was standing in line, and there's this guy in front of me with, 2 carts, huge carts, overflowing. But it wasn't the stuff you think. Okay, it wasn't like healthy stuff. It was all sodas and soft drinks, chips and snacks, ice cream, and I was trying not to stare. But he kind of caught me looking at him, and he just looked over at me, and he kind of shrugged and says, "You never know." And you know what I did in that moment, or what flashed through me? I had half a mind in that moment to run to the other side of Raley's, down to the ice cream section, and grab a few containers of Moose Tracks, just in case they were running low. Because the truth is, running out of toilet paper is one thing, but Moose Tracks, don't even go there. And the point is, how easily is this, I don't know if it's just for me, but how easy it is to fall into that sense of panic and anxiety, isn't it? It's like we can just, in a snap, go to that place. And the truth is, it is frightening out there, just to be in the world. It's risky right now. I want you to consider this example. Say you're at your grocery store of choice, and you happen to see someone, oh my gosh, I haven't seen this person in forever. And for a moment you forget and you touch them. Maybe it's their shoulder, maybe you shake their hand, maybe you give them a hug. And then you go back. What would be going through your head right there? We are facing ways of being in our world with each other that we just simply haven't had to do before. We haven't been asked to be like this before. The manager at Bel Air, I think, said it so well when I went through the line at a different time, and she said, we're operating with half staff and we're all working 12 to 14-hour days. And she said, I never envisioned that working at a grocery store would feel like I was on the front lines. And she's so true. I mean, it's what Carol Williams was praying about. I think it's what we know. They're not just stocking shelves and delivering food anymore. It's putting their health at risk so that we can get what we need. That's what it's about right now. There are a ton of risks all around in places that we didn't even ever think about them before. But here's the thing. Okay, all those risks out there. But even if you stay at home, like even if you never leave your house, and then maybe you say to yourself, all right, I'm going to call that person that I've had this issue with that we haven't resolved. Even if that's what you do, there's still risk there, isn't there? So you hear the words I just read, and it says, okay, Jesus says to love one another. So I'm going to do that, Pastor Dan. I'm going to call that person. I'm going to call someone and tell them that I love them. Well, what if their response is silence? Or what if they say something that actually is kind of cutting? Or what if they say something honest like, yeah, I'm sorry, I just don't feel that same way about you. You see, this love that Jesus invites us to, it is inherently risky. And sometimes more than that, it can be terrifying. Okay? We have to remember, I think, that it was no different for Jesus when he was talking about this stuff, or the people of his day. You know, look at the Gospel of John. That's where the passage came from. 10 out of the 21 chapters of John's Gospel are all about Holy Week and the lead up, the horrifying events that lead up to Holy Week. So we often hear these words, you know, love one another, and we're thinking, you know, come on, people now, shine on. No, it's not about that. When Jesus is giving these words, it is essentially the most soul-wrenching, difficult time of his life. It's the day before he's going to be denied and betrayed and deserted by everyone he knows and loves. He's going to be alone as he faces accusation and arrest, and then he's tortured and executed. So it's on the threshold of that he's saying those words I read. It's on the threshold of all of that pain and that loss that he's saying, I give you this commandment to love one another. Do you see what he's doing here? He's telling us that there's never a time. There is never a place. There is no betrayal. There's no desperation. There's no isolation. There's no fear. There's no whatever you can think of or name. There is no place where love is not called for. There's no place where love is not the answer. There's no place where God is not already present. So it's like that psalmist tells us, you know, where can I go to be away from you, God? If I go to the highest heights, if I go to the heavens, you are there. If I go to the pits of hell, God, you are there. So may that kind of presence and powerful love inspire us, like it already has, bringing out the best in who we are. I mean, think back to other times of crisis in our collective lives. Think back to 9/11, in that time of chaos and collapse and calamity, where everyone was trying to flee from those two towers to save their lives. There was a group of people who were rushing in the other direction. Those first responders, the firefighters, the police, the medical professionals. Yes, because they were trained to do so, but also it was more than that. It was because there was no fear that could hold back their even deeper, more profound compassion for humanity that motivated them. And I think in our time now, the same thing is happening. So we see all these doctors and nurses and EMTs, you know, going to the front lines, the medical supply providers. They are stepping into the breach. And more than that, the grocery store workers, the mail carriers, the package deliverers, the utilities, the people who work at utilities, keeping the power on, keeping our Wi-Fi going. The teachers who are trying to be more creative, to be connected to their students. All of these people are doing whatever is necessary to keep it going. And that, my friends, is love in action. For many of us who are at home, it can feel like sitting at home and binge watching our favorite TV programs is just about the height of what we can do. Look, there's nothing wrong with that. I've told you before, I am so psyched that Ozark is back, season 3, great show. But is that the height of what we're called to do right now? At what cost? I mean, is there a way that we could utilize our time in more wise ways than that? It reminds me of my friend Todd from New Hampshire, so a friend I had growing up. And he had to be one of the first kids I knew that was collecting Star Wars figures and all those Star Wars toys with the intent to never open them. and to save them so that people could buy it, he could sell them later. So I go over his house, and his room is all these displays. You know, everywhere you got these pristine packages. He wouldn't even let me touch them. He would say, "You can look, don't touch." And it was all I could do. I just want to tear into them. And I wonder about him today. You know, I wonder about what's that like for him. Look, he might have done pretty well. If he waited long enough, he might have made some good money. But at what cost? I wonder what he would think about that today. There's a poet named Antonio Portia who wrote, "Every toy has the right to break." In a sense, every toy has a right to be used. And I guess I'd say, or I'd ask, isn't the same thing true for our hearts? Every heart has the right to be broken open for the sake of love, to be used for the sake of compassion. So I'm wondering if we can follow in Jesus' footsteps, and maybe that means getting out of our house and going in and serving at the food closet or other places where the need is right now. That might be it. But it might also mean that we don't get off our couch. But maybe it means taking a risk for love in another way. Maybe it's writing that letter, sending that email, the text, breaking the ice, whatever that is. Do something kind for another out of love. Why? Because love isn't canceled. And kindness isn't quarantined. Amen?
Amen.
Amen. So for our music today, I want to welcome in Richard March, our music director, once again, and also Charlie Serrano, who's come in to play a little drums. The song we're doing today is called "Ain't No Grave" by the Dave Crowder Band, and I wanted to ask Richard, what was it that motivated you to want to do this song today?
Well, you gave me some outline as to the message, loving in the face of fear, and so I did what anyone would do in 2020. I searched the internet and used a couple of different words: perseverance, facing fear, courageousness, and went through a lot of different options. And then this song popped up, the David Crowder Band, and it spoke to me right away. It was grounded, and I mean, regardless that we're in Lent and Easter's around the corner, it was a wonderful message of, ain't no grave gonna hold me down, and we can face the things that are in front of us. And,
Amen.
Amen. So.
All right, let's do it.
All right.
1, 2, 3, 4. My Lord, it's a winding road.
Now may the abiding, unyielding, ever-present, always ready love of God be with you today and every day until we come together again.